Hi, and welcome to class session 2 for Ed 407-507. Let's go ahead and take a look at this week's agenda. We're going to look at assignments, the field experience, Hudson and Miller's Chapter 1, new class topics, and the graduate project. Your assignments for this week are to read Hudson and Miller's Chapter 2, the reading quiz for Chapter 2, and begin to skim Ashlock's text, as this is important for you to do for the discussion board entries. You need to submit notes to me about the math project, and then do 2 discussion board activities. One, the error analysis of whole numbers, and the second is the Dos Rios Virtual School District activity. The notes for your math project, even if you don't already have students identified, this is still up to you to do. You just have to tell me, instead of exact, you can tell me what you're looking for. But you need to submit notes to me about students chosen for your math project and share student work samples and assessment data from 2 students you have identified. You should have a complete assessment plan and preliminary data by next week to stay on track. Field experience. I do not allow students in this course to have a relative in their school or the student that they're specifically working with for the projects. So please keep that in mind. If this is an issue for you, you need to contact me as soon as possible. Field experience hours and logs. Both are not required, however, both are highly recommended. One, it's recommended that you at least have 30 hours set aside to gather information for this class, and you might want to keep the log in order to have a piece of evidence for your portfolio. Field experience forms can all be found on the Teacher Education Program's website. Let's go ahead and look at Hudson and Miller's Chapter 1, and I have listed the chapter objectives, so let's go ahead and discuss these real quick. In education, the curriculum is what teachers teach. It is the substance of the General Education Mathematics program. Today, the General Education curriculum in mathematics is shaped strongly by the NCTM standards, and standards developed by most states are based on these national standards. Therefore, educators must be familiar with the NCTM standards and see how these standards are interfaced with traditional math curriculum. Educators working with low-performing students must consider 3 factors when making curriculum decisions: the hierarchy and sequence of skill, selecting essential skills for instruction, and creating a meaningful context. Carefully designing curriculum provides an important foundation that effective teaching practices can then build on. The second thing that I talked about in this chapter was the 4 instructional domains. And the 4 instructional domains include conceptual understanding, declarative knowledge, procedural knowledge, and problem solving. They are based on a great deal of research that shows this is the way we learn math. Then it talks about the 7 phases of explicit teaching cycle, which are curriculum-based assessments, planning, advanced organizers, demonstration, guided practice, and independent practice, and maintenance. Monitoring student performance is integrated through daily phases of the cycle. There are 3 steps to monitoring, which is check students' understanding, provide feedback, and make data-based decisions to determine whether a student understands what we are instructing. In looking at the curriculum, as we had just mentioned, standards are vital, and for this class, the state's revised standards are needed to use for your math project, for your writing project, etc. So please utilize the revised standards. When looking at your curriculum, you might have Saxon, you might have Everyday Math, you might have Singapore Math, you might have Scots-Forsman, Houghton Mifflin, etc. You might have a different curriculum, and that's okay. Please know that not one curriculum is ideal for all students. Typically, curriculum is made for the students who are just average students, the norm. Students who are outliers, that are gifted and talented, or students who have learning needs, are not considered in that curriculum when they develop it. So, we as educators, and in the field specifically of special education, have to come up with a little bit more to that curriculum to allow our students to learn and learn appropriately. There is such a thing as supplemental curriculum. For example, Touch Math would be an example of this. It's a great program to use to instruct students on how to count and how to add, multiply, divide, etc., but it is not a curriculum all in itself. I could utilize that and teach my student the strategies of Touch Math in order to use in Saxon or in Scots-Forsman, etc. Teacher-created resources are great, so please contact your colleagues and other colleagues of other schools and see what they're doing for their students who are struggling in the area of math. And you'll find that there are more really great teacher-created resources than you can ever find to purchase. Manipulatives, we talked about this at last class, so I'm going to go ahead and skip over that. Assistive technology, there is a SWAC in Colorado. It's SWAAC, and basically what that is, it's an interloan library where if you find a piece of assistive technology that you would like to try out with your student, you can ask for it to be loaned to you. utilize it with your student, send it back, and then make a determination if that is going to be worthwhile or if it's not exactly what you need. It's a great way to not purchase anything, but see if it's going to be worthwhile for your student. Technology, there's so much out there these days. You can have students you could teach something and the next moment you can have a video playing of another teacher teaching the same concept to your students so that they can see a different way of teaching. You can have student work directly with a computer in a math program. You can have a student interact with a Promethean or a Smartboard to understand a math concept. There's so much out there, it's unbelievable. Then I've also included ABCs of teaching, and this is just my personal opinion of things that a teacher must have in order to be a great special education teacher. Your first activity for this week is also looking at the IEP. I have answered for you all of these questions on a handout that you can find in Blackboard that really answers these questions of the IEP. Since we won't really have the time to discuss all of this in detail, it just is a great resource for you to have. So please read that on your own time. I've also added an additional resource to that as well, is about what your role as a special education teacher is, what general education teachers' roles are, etc., for working with students, specifically for math. And then what are the responsibilities of a teacher in special education when working with the Tier 1 of RTI and how we can meet those students' needs. And basically, to answer that and sum it all up in one word is consultation with a general education teacher. So you can read more about that in that additional handout. I am very big on this next topic, which is how we use progress monitoring and benchmark data to inform our instruction and how we deliver our instruction. There are resources out there on interventioncentral.com, AimsWeb, NWEA, which most schools have adopted. There's DIBELS. There's a ton out there that we can progress monitor our students. Please make sure that whatever progress monitoring tool you are utilizing covers at least reading, writing, and math, because those are the three main areas of instruction. And so you need to make sure that you have a universal benchmark, which means that all students get assessed, and then you are comparing all students to a norm, which is what everybody else should be at that grade level. Then for students who are not there, we must progress monitor them. We can progress monitor them on a monthly basis, every 2 weeks, every week, daily, depending on what we want to know about the student. That data is going to tell us either that it is something that the student is doing, or it's going to tell us something that we're doing in our instruction to not meet that student's need. And it takes out that guesswork behind what we actually do day in and day out. So this is really vital for us to be progress monitoring, and I will touch upon this at our next class. Also, how do you gather information about students' needs in the consultative process? It's really important to know, like I just had mentioned, gathering all the data that you can and then taking it to a team and consulting with the general education teacher and other team members to work with students to really understand what the basis might be of the problem. How do we know what we put in place really is going to work for the student? Well, this is really important that we use research-based and scientifically based strategies, because that is what's required by law now. So if a parent actually asks you, well, how do you know that that intervention is going to work? You must back that up with research of somehow, some way to share that information. The easiest way to obtain this is to go to whatworks.ed.gov, or it's the iesed.gov website. You can click on either one of these and you can just type in, for example, Scott Swarsman, and it will tell you a rating of how that math curriculum program works and all about it. So it's fabulous to utilize this resource. Last but not least is your graduate project. For those of you who are doing your graduate project, you should have already, you should know who your team is and start to exchange emails and to get started and game plan exactly how you guys are going to work on your project. Keep in mind that the timeline I have established for you, you can get that resource, but I have put up at least weeks 1 through 9, so you know what you need to do. It is very important that you realize that I will only be allowed to give you work time when we're actually live at our live sessions, but that those come very few and far between. I think we only will have 2 before you actually do your presentations. So please keep in mind that you need to kind of work on this at your own pace and get together with your group as you can. And last but not least, but if you have any final thoughts or any questions about the topics today that were discussed or need any more information, as always, feel free to call or email me. You can call me, of course, on Fridays during my work hours, or you can email me at any time. Thanks so much, and I hope you guys have a great week. Bye-bye.